It's a rivalry with deep-seated hate in the SEC. And it's become a lot more competitive of late when you look at it. Tennessee and Alabama will face off this Saturday. The Vols ranked 11th in the country, Crimson Tide number 6. And you look at it for Tennessee, they've won 2 of the past 3 meetings after Alabama won the previous 15 straight. That includes a dub last year for UT. It is the 108th meeting. They've met every season since 1928. You look at the calendar this portion of the year in October, and you know they are about to face off. And they're facing off with an Alabama team that's been very good against ranked teams with Kalen Deboer under the helm. Pleased now to welcome in Mike Rodak, who covers Alabama for 24/7 Sports, and Patrick Brown, also with 24/7 and covering Tennessee. The Vols, now we look at it, they come into this game losing 22 straight road games against AP top 10 teams. They haven't won in Tuscaloosa since 2003, which might not feel like that long ago, but you do the math and you see, whew, it's been a while. Patrick, what's the feel around the Tennessee program this week?
Well, Zach, I was in high school in 2003, so it has been a long time. But I think the feel for Tennessee is they know that this is a big game, and they know they've got to go play well. Tennessee is they are probably a missed field goal away from being 6-0 against Georgia, but they're also, we're a play or two away from losing at Mississippi State. The Arkansas game last week got a little hairy late after Tennessee led by 17 in the fourth quarter. So Tennessee knows they've got some things to clean up, and they know it's going to take their best effort going to Tuscaloosa. Tennessee's got a couple of long losing streaks that they've got against rivals. They haven't won at Florida since 2003. The Alabama struggles you kind of get because Alabama's been so good for so long under Nick Saban. But Tennessee's gone to Tuscaloosa the last 2 times under Josh Heupel in 2021 and 2023 and been competitive. That 21 game got away a little bit in the fourth quarter, and Tennessee actually led 20-7 at halftime of the 23 game before Alabama came roaring back and scored 27 straight in the second half. So they probably actually played better there than they have in Gainesville. But Tennessee knows it'll have to take its best game on the road, handle the environment, handle the noise, handle the swings of the game, and be there in the end to get out of there with a win, and a first win there in over 20 years.
Yeah, and for Alabama, it's been an interesting week because, it was a pretty close game at the head at Missouri. There was a chance late in the game that Missouri could have tied it or taken the lead. So it's kind of felt like they lost the game. When you talk to Ty Simpson after that game, when you talk to players this week, it feels like they have a lot to work on, and they aren't satisfied with where they are despite being on a 5-game winning streak, despite just beating 3 ranked SEC opponents in a row. So, Ty Simpson walked into a meeting Monday, and players said that he ripped their butts, which was a different phrase that was used there, but he was pretty mad. And he's a guy that wants perfection. He demands perfection out of this offense and out of this team. And this is an Alabama team that's playing with a chip on its shoulder. They want to take a step forward and prove that what they did against Florida State by losing in week 1 is not what they are. And I don't think in their minds that they've done that well enough the last couple weeks. So they want to play better against Tennessee. They do think there's some opportunity against Tennessee's defense with the man coverage that they play to have a big day through the air with their receivers, but they also know it's going to take a lot better effort from their offensive line to pass protect and keep Ty Simpson upright. He's taken 8 sacks the last 2 weeks. So it's another challenging game. That's their 4th ranked SEC opponent in a row. Alabama hasn't done that since 2016, faced 4 of those in a row, but they have a chance to have a 6-game winning streak right now.
That schedule in the SEC never lets up for folks at all. And we started the Alabama portion of the conversation right now, and I want to go even further into it because listen to this. A list of coaches all time against AP-ranked opponents. When you look at them, how they've been, Kalen Deboer leads the way of all coaches who have played a minimum of 10 games. 18-3 the record, and 857 win percentage. So he is literally the best against ranked opponents. Mike, and you alluded to this, and I feel like I've noticed this on social media and just kind of the talk around college football is it feels like a different Bama program than who we saw lose to Florida State on that week 1.
Yeah, there's definitely a different energy that they're playing with. Obviously, their effort was questioned a whole lot back in week 1 in Tallahassee. And, they've played with that chip, with that edge that Kalen Deboer wants. I think he's used some of that outside doubt about them, whether it's been about his own job security or the players themselves. I think he's kind of hit the right buttons and feeding players some of that information and getting them to get fired up and motivated before each one of these games. But the thing is, in some ways, they aren't different from Florida State because they do still have some of those flaws that they showed in that game, whether it's not being able to run the ball very well, whether it's been pass protection, whether it's been some of their big plays allowed on defense. Those issues from that Florida State game have carried through the season, but they're making plays when they need them. They're hanging in games. They're kind of, taking the adversity and taking it all in stride and then just making the play when they need to. So we saw that again against Missouri, where Missouri's driving down the field, the last drive of the game, chance to tie the game, and they come up with a big interception. So that's the sort of thing that they've done differently. And that's the sort of thing that Kalen Deboer has really liked out of his team these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Mike, Alabama's done a really good job of turning things around after what looked like a pretty humiliating and humbling loss to open the season. And from Tennessee's standpoint, I think they're a lot different from last season in this game. Last season in this game, Tennessee did not score in the first half. They won that game really with defense. This season, they're winning games really with offense. They're leading the SEC in scoring. They're doing a little bit, they're doing it differently than they have in the past. I know Alabama fans probably still remember the Jalen Hyatt game in 2002. Where he was running all over the place wide open against safeties and scoring 5 touchdowns. But Tennessee is back to that level of production, but they're doing it differently. They're not spreading the field sideline to sideline. They're doing more pro stuff, more condensed formations, more bunch sets that are getting guys open. They're peppering the field with crossing patterns, but they're still able to run the football really well too. And defensively, as you kind of mentioned, they have taken a step back. Last season, they were in the top 10 nationally in total defense, scoring defense, yards per play allowed. This season, they're bottom of the SEC in pretty much all those categories. So this is a different Alabama team from week 1, and this is a different Tennessee team from this meeting a year ago.
We're getting to the portion of the year where it's like, okay, we look towards November and then the CFP polls are going to come out and it's time to really start thinking about the playoffs. And with a game of this magnitude, Patrick, I had to ask you first, when you look at the Vols, are they okay if they take a loss on Saturday?
I think they're okay, but there's no more margin for error if they lose this game, Zach. They've still got to go to Florida, where, as I mentioned, they haven't won since 2003. They still got to play Oklahoma, who was playing pretty well before last week. That game's at home. They've still got to play Vanderbilt, who obviously looks like a handful for a lot of the SEC again this season. That's at the end of the regular season. And they still got to go to Kentucky, where they always seem to play a tight game lately. So I would be interested to see what some of the metrics out there have. I would think that their chances of making the playoff probably would go up more with a win against Alabama than they would drop with a loss, because the path is still kind of there. But certainly this is a game where if you're Tennessee, you're trying to separate yourself. You look like a college football playoff contender in that close loss to Georgia. Now you've got to do it again with your performance and this time get the result at Alabama.
Yeah, and for Alabama, I think they can certainly afford to take another loss. I think 2 more losses would knock them out, as we saw last year. A 3-loss team really needs to have a great resume. And look, this Alabama team does have a shot if they do have 3 losses, but I think you need to go and at most take 1 more loss here. When you look at, South Carolina on the road is a tricky game. You have LSU coming to town. Oklahoma is the real interesting matchup because that's the team that beat Alabama last year in Norman. They have an improved offense from what they had last year, and that defense can really get after this Alabama offensive line. So that's the game I have circled personally as, probably one of the toughest left for Alabama. And then you also have the Iron Bowl, which anything can happen in Jordan-Hare Stadium. We've seen that over the years, no matter what Auburn looks like, the first 11 games out of the year. So for Alabama their strength of schedule is very high to this point. They've played one of the toughest schedules in the country. It does ease up a little bit down the stretch, but it's still the SEC. Every single week you need to bring it. And it wasn't the toughest games on the schedule that got Alabama last year. It was the perceived easier games, like the Oklahoma game last year, where maybe they were a little bit overconfident, didn't take things seriously enough, and that's kind of where they got bit. And that's ultimately what kept them out of the playoff. But I do think Alabama can afford 1 more loss and still be in pretty good shape for the playoff.
Yeah, to kind of hammer home that point a little bit, according to those graphics that we showed from Inside the Lines, for a loss for Alabama, it would dip their chances to make the playoffs at 52.4%. But for Tennessee, a loss would put them at 22.8% for the chances to make that CFP. So certainly a lot on the line, and you need your QBs to play very well in this. And luckily for both teams, they have good QBs. Ty Simpson, Joey Aguilar on each side, both with great numbers this season. They are probably set up to try to play their best, but Mike, I'll ask you this first. Who do you think is set up to have the bigger game?
I do think it's Ty Simpson playing at home, and obviously having, the benefit of not having the crowd that not he had to face, but Alabama had to face last year at Jalen Milroe in Neyland Stadium, which is always considered, one of the toughest places to play. So you don't have to worry about that, for Ty. And obviously on the other side, Joey Aguilar is going to face a pretty raucous crowd that has a full day of preparation for this game in Tuscaloosa. So, Ty has a great group of receivers, really 4 to 5 deep that can really stress a defense. And even if one or two guys aren't playing their best game, as we saw last week with Ryan Williams, you can still have a different guy step up. And that's what happened when Lazier Brooks, the freshman, had that big 4th down play that really helped Alabama win that game. So, Ty, I think, needs his offensive line to play better. I think he needs to play within himself and not try to do too much when plays break down. But as long as he's just clicking and those plays are coming for him, he's been great this year. And this is another game where I think he can really cement himself as one of the front runners for the Heisman.
Yeah, Mike, Ty Simpson in Tennessee, there's some history there. He's obviously a Tennessee native coming from Martin, which is on the western, I guess, third of the state. But Tennessee's coaching staff tried to get in there late after they got hired when Josh Heupel came in and replaced Jeremy Pruitt. And they tried to get him, and he went to Alabama. So there's a little bit of history on that side of it. For Joey Aguilar, he's obviously taking a much different path. He was not a 5-star recruit, had no offers coming out of high school, navigated a couple of junior college stops, thought about giving up football at one point. So and then he goes from a backup to one junior college to starting there, and then a backup at Appalachian State to starting there, goes to UCLA, ends up coming to Tennessee. But he's been really good this season. I think his experience, I think his poise, I think his calmness is going to be really important on the road and what's probably going to be a very loud, very hostile environment. It was key in that Mississippi State game down the stretch when he made some key plays on that tying touchdown drive that got Tennessee to overtime in that game. And he's got to continue to take care of the ball. He didn't throw any interceptions last week against Arkansas. He's had some tip drill picks, but he's making a lot of plays right now. He's able to get Tennessee out of trouble with his legs at times, and he's got a really good connection with his 3 receivers. Tennessee's got 3 pretty good wideouts too. Mike talked about Alabama's group, but Tennessee's got Chris Brazzell, who was on fire to start the season. Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley are both capable of stepping up and having big games as well. So there's some similarities between both these quarterbacks in how they're playing, even though they took different paths to get here. And certainly they've got good weapons around. Tennessee's protected Aguilar really well too this season.
The NCAA would say, okay, we shouldn't mention this, but of course we know that the winner of this, they had their victory cigar, and although that'll be against the rules of tobacco usage, we figured that will still happen. That means someone's going to win. I now ask you, Patrick, first, who will win on Saturday?
Well, I don't think a lot of people probably nationally are going to give Tennessee much of a shot in this game. Alabama's won 5 in a row. Tennessee's looked a little sketchy against some of the maybe bottom 4th, bottom 3rd teams in the SEC, but both these teams have played a lot of close games, and both these teams have had to fight through some adversity of their own making at times. But I'm actually going to go with Tennessee in this game. It'll probably look either really foolish or really smart come Sunday morning or late Saturday night. But I think Tennessee has, as I mentioned, with Joey Aguilar in that offense, they've got different ways of putting up points. They're doing things differently now. You look at the Georgia and Mississippi State games, they throw for over 300 yards, make a lot of big plays with that wide receiver trio I mentioned. But Arkansas last week, if the passing game was a little bit off, the run game's able to pick it up with Deshaun Bishop and that offensive line. So I think that offense can travel. I think it's put up points against Georgia. They scored 41 against Mississippi State with the help of a couple of defensive scores, and I think they'll be able to make some plays in this game as well. I feel less confident about Tennessee's defense. They've obviously given up a lot of yards, a lot of 3rd down conversions, a lot of big plays, but they also made a ton of plays. They lead the SEC in sacks. They're up there in takeaways too. So I think this will be another close game. Both these teams, again, like I said, have played a lot of close games. There's plenty of reason to think this one will go down to the wire as well. That's just how the SEC goes. I think it would be probably pretty fitting if Georgia wins at Tennessee, Alabama wins at Georgia, and then Tennessee turns around and wins at Alabama. I think that would be pretty fitting for how competitive the SEC is and how chaotic the sport is. So I think Tennessee will find a way to get it done, make a play late, and win 31-27.
Yeah, I have both teams in the 30s as well, maybe even the 40s. I think this can be a higher scoring game with the quarterbacks and the receivers that are playing in it. And for Alabama, I do have them winning. I think at home, they're a very tough team to beat. 36 out of the last 37 that they've won at home, but their games have been tight. They've been trailing in 7 of their past 9 SEC games at home, and some of those games really could have gone either way. So they're going to need to make those plays that they've made over these past couple games in these key moments. But at the end of the day, I do think Ty Simpson and the receivers that he have that he has are really the key to this game. And, Tennessee's secondary has given up some yards. They've given up some plays. As long as Alabama's offensive line can hold up and not just completely break down, as we've seen at some points this year, then I think this offense can win the game for Alabama. But, it's not easy in the SEC, and every single week is a grind. And I don't think this is going to be any different.
And if turnovers are something that you certainly are monitoring for this game, you have to lay in the way of Alabama because they are +9 in turnover margin, which is tied for second best in all of FBS. Mike Rodak and Patrick Brown looking forward to Saturday at 7:30 to see the third Saturday of the month in October give us this great showdown. You can find even more showdowns and more things going on in the college football world by tapping into the CBS Sports College Football YouTube page. See the QR code there. Go ahead and lock in with the fine folks to get all this type of info like what we just gave you.